नमस्कार दोस्तों। 26 दिसंबर 2024 आज हम द हिंदू की एडिटोरियल जितना भी है वो डिस्कस करने जा रहे हैं। द हिंदू से मेनली आज देखे जाए तो दो इम्पॉर्टेंट आर्टिकल्स हैं। वी विल टेक दोज आर्टिकल्स, विल डिस्कस देम इन डिटेल। टुडे वी आर स्टार्टिंग विथ न्यू इनिशिएटिव ethics. We'll be using many examples and many quotes where you can use in ethics answer writing, even ethical examples also. So you are all welcome to Namo Academy of Excellence. Without further delay, let's start our discussion. First article here, it talks about Nagapattinam journey and its resilience. Disasters, they have been gave critical reminder because of the nature's overwhelming power and humanity's vulnerability. Exactly 20 years back, on December 26, Indian Ocean tsunami, this delivered unparalleled wave of destruction. There were several areas hard hit by this tsunami exactly 20 years ago. One such area was Nagapattinam, which is in Tamil Nadu. Yet, the disaster, this also marked the turning point. It became case study how the tragic systems can transform and become more resilient society with proper groundwork. Now, almost 20 years later, India has taken a lot of work in the disaster preparedness, disaster response, even mitigation mechanism also. But these risks are evolving. They are fueled by urbanization, climate change. There are growing complexity of disasters, even increasing frequency of extreme weather events. All these things require continuous innovation and vigilantism. Now, it is high time we visit Nagapattinam experience because Nagapattinam, if you see, this city offers valuable lessons in order to shape our future strategies. When tsunami struck Indian coast, Nagapattinam almost it has 188 kilometer long coastline, 73 habitations. It was hard hit by that tsunami. Early warning system for tsunami, they were non-existent in the Indian Ocean region. Even if you see infrastructure also, this was ill-equipped to withstand such kind of calamity. After overcoming those kind of initial chaos, rescue operations were carried out in the self-contained and area-specific teams. It was led by experienced officers who are drawn from unaffected districts. Even they are supported from personnel from critical departments such as revenue, local bodies, health, police, public work, and even fisheries also. Even additional resources, including Indian Army, Indian Navy, police, and fire services, they were all mobilized. Local volunteers, they also played a critical role in disaster mitigation. There was a quick and dignified disposal of bodies that was prioritized to prevent disease outbreak. Even those coastal areas, those were disinfected using microbial inoculants, even chemicals also. Infrastructure restoration, those efforts were carried out in re-establishing electricity, water supply, road connectivity. Almost 13,000 temporary shelters were constructed across 50 locations. For those people whose families have been displaced, even provided essential shelter and safety. Government issued dynamic field-based order. Those orders went beyond standard permissible categories in order to address various needs of the various sectors, even people affected by tsunami. Rehabilitation and recovery effects, they were provided holistic and scalable models for disaster recovery by including this DRR measures. What is DRR? Disaster risk reduction. Even efforts emphasized in building resilient communities by constructing 55,000 multi-hazard resistant homes. They are supported by integrated risk transfer through comprehensive insurance. Disaster ready healthcare facilities were established. Even Anganwadi centers, schools, community halls were transformed into multi-hazard shelters. Those people whose livelihood have been affected, those livelihood have been revived, and economic growth was propelled by empowering coastal community with strengthened infrastructure, modern ports, fishing harbors, even improved agricultural practices also. Alternative livelihoods they were strengthened by supporting women self-help groups, improving market access, even educational facilities also upgraded in order to cater disaster safe environments. Another area where they focused more on was enhanced mobility and safety. They were issued in order to ensure rebuilding of roads, bridges, and critical escape routes. Coastal defenses were fortified, strengthened with sea walls, shelter belt plantations, and multi hazard shelters. Even they were complemented by disaster risk reduction initiatives like vulnerable reduction projects. Those projects were supported by World Bank assistance. There were comprehensive psychological support through counseling services. Those people who are mentally affected, counseling services was also provided. In Nagapattinam, almost 400 non-governmental organizations they provided essential services, medical aid, trauma counseling, sanitation, livelihood restoration. By involving those local people in those efforts, people were empowered in order to take ownership of their own recovery. Government they maintained oversight, they ensured resources. Those resources were allocated efficiently and they were aligned with district needs. Institutionalizing frameworks, including non-governmental organization and government collaboration, this gave a huge force multiplier and acted swift manner and effective manner in order to prevent future disaster. Those disasters mainly they affect disproportionately most vulnerable sections of the population: children, women, elderly, differently abled individuals, even marginalized community also. For children, Anaylsys Satya Home it provided essential education, counseling, emotional support those who had become orphaned. For women, particularly those who had become widows and single mothers, they were empowered through vocational training programs. Differently abled individuals, they benefited from special medical camps and skill development initiatives. Those initiatives were aimed at fostering economic independence also. So, what should be done in long term? Building long term resilience is the one of the greater solution. Nagapattinam experience this highlights critical importance of planning long term resilience beyond immediate recovery. What do you mean by resilience at first sight? Resilience is nothing but when something happens, then society comes back automatically. So that flexibility will be there. Suppose say now tsunami happens, it breaks all the houses. Those houses will not break because those houses have been constructed based on tsunami strength and all. Some of the part may be damaged, but they can withstand. That is called resilient infrastructure. So those kind of infrastructure upgrade with strengthened healthcare facilities, schools, transportation networks, even those things will enhance region preparedness for future disasters. This is what resilience means. There are coastal defense measures, sea walls, shelter belt plantation, multi-hazard shelters. They provided vital protection for vulnerable coastal areas. Even growing relevant risk insurance extending beyond crops, such as like housing and comprehensive disaster risk management, they can be. We need to work on this area. 2004 tsunami this exposed critical gaps in India's disaster management framework. Even it catalyzed enactment of Disaster Management Act 2005. Key institutional developments, including setting up of this National Disaster Management Authority, was carried out after this tsunami. State and district authorities they were empowered to implement disaster management plans. Those plans they are cut down to local needs, even covered all phases of disaster management cycle. Resilient measures they were embedded in urban planning, infrastructure projects, even development policies also. If we consider because tsunami advancement in technology, this has revolutionized disaster management in India. We established Indian Tsunami Early Warning Center in 2007 in order to provide real-time monitoring, even alerts also. geographical indication system mapping, artificial intelligence driven risk assessment, mobile application, they all have enhanced preparedness. If you see today, you get everything on mobile. Even recent cyclone also you can consider post disaster needs assessment. This is also made a great manner in order to assess the risk that has been impacted by these tsunamis. What about the global experience? What we can learn from global areas? When you contrast experiences in Haiti, in Chile, in disaster risk recovery, this highlights critical importance on comprehensive disaster management system. In Haiti, there was lack of insurance, underdeveloped disaster response framework. This led to prolonged recovery process following 2010 earthquake. Conversely, if you see in Chile, there was effective national and local disaster management plan. They were coupled with robust insurance coverage, enabled this thing fast recovery. Japan, this also give greater example of preemptive measures, right? Before any issues comes up, they will take action beforehand. That is called preemptive measure, like investment in risk reduction, enforcement of the building codes, robust early warning systems. For India also, these kind of examples they highlight there is need for proactive investment in the risk reduction, stricter building codes, comprehensive insurance mechanism also. Despite there was progress, millions in India, mostly in coastal villages, floodplains, urban slum, this remain particularly vulnerable. Empowering at-risk community through education and guidance, it is very essential in order to prepare them for potential disasters in the future. Embedding risk reduction into development plans, this is very crucial, creating resilient communities with shared ownership. Repetition building, readiness, workshop, training, consultative sessions, they should be focused on generational recall, like conducted like post tsunami. These things will help them to prepare for sustained tsunamis. Leveraging local knowledge, sharing global expertise on disaster risk reduction, this can enhance community level resilience. Ultimately, if you see disaster management, it is no longer just about survival, it is about ensuring that tragedies lead to learning and transformation. By honoring the memory of those lost, we can build a better future of resilience and preparedness, and these are the cornerstone of every community. Very good article. Nagapatnam is one case, and you can learn from other world cases also. This article is about more or less disaster risk reduction only. We need to. This article talks about few important points, 6 points basically. These lessons we will discuss in quick manner. So disaster happened. There was a warning, but we didn't learn the lessons. So what are all the lessons we need to learn? So as we discussed, right? There is importance of mangroves. When you grow mangroves in coastal area, they act as a buffer zones against waves. Unfortunately, if you see in India, there is a significant destruction of mangroves. Even in other countries, in order to promote shrimp farming, even meeting basic wood and fuel needs for tourism, this disrupted mangrove natural ecosystem. In many cases, construction of artificial barriers like brick and mortar walls, they actually increase people's susceptibility to damage, like effects of the wall. Even social changes also, we need to do many things. Keeping common resources like beaches to public domain, this is very important. If you see, for example, in Thailand, privatization of coastline during 1980 and 1990, this allowed private interest in order to develop hotels, leisure activities. This displaced local communities. This led to significant change in labor. Sex industry also rose out. Additionally, large section of the population, they transitioned into informal sector jobs. Thailand economy became highly vulnerable to global fluctuation, and it is highly a lesson for India. We should avoid privatization of beaches also. This should be open for public. Third thing, tsunami created winners and losers in the market. Rents, price of the land, goods and services, all those things increases. These things will benefit only asset owners and service providers. The disruption of these kind of local market, this will lead to replacement of local products with externally sourced goods. Even it disrupts interdependent local economies. Our supply chain will be basically broken. Number of people they transition from traditional livelihood to casual, low-paid labor. This pushes mechanizing fishing because of this displaced traditional fishing practices using catamarans. This is called like catamarans. That was traditional fishing. Now they are using bottom trawling. When they use bottom trawling, what happens? Those will bottom trawling, it will go to bottom of the sea and it will catch the fish, but that will affect the bed of the sea. When bed of the sea is affected, it will impact fish eggs also. Those fish eggs, it may hatch and then it may give rise to small baby fishes, but those things may not come out. So these are all destructing environment basically. Even degradation of natural resources, they have been intensified. This led to overfishing, waste accumulation, loss of fish breeding areas, even further erosion of beaches and soil also. Addressing all these economic process of production, consumption, exchange, these are all things affected by privatization, liberalization. This is highly challenged. Unfortunately, there is no studies that exist to measure these kind of patterns. Now, one more worse area is that there is worsening inequalities. Fourth area we need to focus in is that we need to learn lessons from relief efforts and long-term rehabilitation. It is not surprising social structure that create sustainable discrimination, injustice, exclusion in society. They are continuing to doing so even during and after disasters. Highly stratified society such as India, we have almost 140 crore, 1.4 billion population. Relief and rehabilitation efforts, they can reinforce, even they can worsen pre-existing inequalities, and then they can carry out discrimination and marginalization of the community. Already marginalization is happening in huge manner. There is a huge discrimination of the people. These things will further impact them. If you see evidence from tsunami affected countries, those things suggest social divisions, they significantly affect access to relief and rehabilitation services. There was notable tendency to overlook needs of the vulnerable groups, including laborers, Dalits, tribes, immigrants, ethnic minorities, widows, single women. In order to carry out this relief and rehabilitation, unless these have some vocal groups advocated for their cause, so they won't have such kind of group, their interest will be subsequently subjugated. For example, in Thailand, there was undocumented Burmese or Lao migrants. They have suffered serious injuries and they required urgent medical attention. They had to go to hiding in order to avoid the arrest. In Sri Lanka also, Tamil minorities in the east, northern region, they received significant or less assistance despite suffering greater devastation. So asset-based damage assessment, this tended a favor better off segments of the affected. Suppose say you have some area and it has been affected, government will give compensation to you. But those people who are not in the part of population or who are not part of affected area, they may not be given compensation. Even within India's fishing community, laborers are engaged in fishing, retail business, even associated activity, they continue to suffer until fishing activity going to happen, but with little compensation. In some communities, relief provided barely met basic subsistence needs, but other people required at that time was excessive aid. Fifth area, gender insensitive relief and rehabilitation policies, they increase the vulnerability of women. In Indian fishing community, women are involved in activities related to processing, marketing of fish, or in non-fishing jobs like collecting shells, running food stalls. If you see women, they rarely own property or assets in their name. During relief and rehabilitation, in many of the cases, 50% and above, their livelihood needs, they were overlooked. Rehabilitation packages were they are based on affected person prepared by fish worker panchayat. This led to women lacking access to relief measures. Widows from fishing worker communities, they face difficulty in receiving assistance because they did not possess identity cards that were issued by fisheries department. Important takeaway from this area is Social divisions, they must be carefully addressed at every stage of relief and rehabilitation. Sixth area, we need to engage with local structures. It is very crucial for relief agencies to respect community-based local institutions, especially like local areas, coastal communities, because those organizations, they revolve around concept of commons. What do you mean by commons? Like unlike this agrarian and urban areas, democratic practices will be there in fishing communities like kuppams. They rely on active debate rather than elections. So this tsunami, this revealed outside agencies, they impose their kind of democratic notions. This thing undermined capacities and resilience by like strengthening individualism and dependence also. While like there are issues, gender insensitivity with these community, critical and long-term engagement with local structure, this would be very effective in addressing these kind of concern rather than like demonizing them. So this is the article about 6 lessons you have been excellently pointed out. This is the article about what we should learn from disasters. Next article, we will discuss about ethics and ethical values. What is ethics? And there are some beautiful quotes who have been given by previous UPSC aspirants. So we will discuss these things in detail. Like these are all self-explanatory, but anyhow, we will finish them. If you see, ethics is a set of standards. They guide our behavior, choices, and actions. Ethics is basically knowing difference between what you have right to do and what is right to do. Like, so ethics help you in identifying what is right, what is wrong. Socrates gave one beautiful quote, it is not living that matters, but living rightly that matters. बहुत अच्छा quote है. In a law, man is guilty when he violates rights of others. In ethics, he is guilty if he only thinks of doing so. So सोचना ही गलत है. आप ethics यानी आपके जीवन में होना चाहिए. जो भी ethical वैल्यूज आप फॉलो कर रहे हो आपके अंदर होना चाहिए. लॉ आएगा, लॉ कुछ सेव करेगा, ऐसे नहीं सोचना चाहिए. एथिक्स जीवन में आप अगर फॉलो करोगे तो बहुत अच्छा एग्जाम्पल है. महात्मा गांधी जी है, नेल्सन मंडेला है. नेल्सन मंडेला तो मतलब 30 साल जेल में रहा और वो अनडिस्प्यूटेड लीडर जैसे उभर कर बाहर आया. तो यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ दीज कोट्स. अनएथिकल बिहेवियर, दिस सिग्निफिकेंटली इंक्रीजेस द कॉस्ट ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस. Even it takes less time to do things right than explain why you did it wrong. So what about values? If you see values, they are like lighthouses. They signal giving us direction, meaning and purpose. Another quote, values are like fingerprints. Nobody's are the same, but you leave them all over everything you do. It is not living that matters, but living rightly. Again Socrates का quote है. Treat those who are good with goodness and also treat those who are not good with goodness, because goodness can be attained. Be honest to those who are honest and be also honest to those who are not honest. Then honesty can also be maintained. This is given by Lao Tzu. You don't become man of success, but rather try to become man of value. This was given by Albert Einstein. Another area we can see, person without values is the beast left loose in the world. This was given by Albert Camus. What about morality? Life without reason and morality, this has no value. Immanuel Kant. What about role of family? 3 key societal members who can make difference are father, mother and teacher. They are the role of family. So it was given by APJ Abdul Kalam. I disagree with what you say, but I will defend till death your right to say it. Voltaire, right to freedom of speech. अभी आजकल जितना भी देखो, कोई अगर गवर्नमेंट के खिलाफ बोल दिया जाए तो उनको पकड़ के मतलब जेल को ठोक देंगे. तो ये फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच को दब दिया जाएगा. एटलीस्ट लाइक स्टेट गवर्नमेंट पे आप जाओगे, सो देयर इज अ ह्यूज वायलेशन ऑफ फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच. आर्टिकल 19 इट गारंटीज यू. From ethical point of view, Voltaire has given a beautiful quote, tolerance. I disagree with what you say, but I will defend till death your right to say it. So tolerance में भी use कर सकते हो. Mark of an educated mind is to entertain thought without accepting it. Another quote है, let noble thoughts come from us from all sides. Rigveda. Education is most powerful weapon with which you can use to change the world. नेल्सन मंडेला ने बोला है. मार्गरेट मेड ने बोला है, चिल्ड्रन मस्ट बी टॉट हाउ टू थिंक नॉट व्हाट टू थिंक. राइट. Mark of educated mind is to entertain a thought without accepting it. Learning gives creativity. Creativity leads to thinking. Thinking provides knowledge. Knowledge makes you greater. APJ Abdul Kalam. What about attitude? Your attitude, not your aptitude. So basically your attitude will determine your altitude. जहाँ पर भी जाना है वो एटीट्यूड मैटर करता है. तो एटीट्यूड जहाँ पर भी आएगा तो आपको यूज़ करना ही करना है. ये डेल कार्नेज, ये बहुत फेमस बंदा है फ्रॉम यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका. द ओनली डिसेबिलिटी इन लाइफ इज बैड एटीट्यूड. हेलेन केलर ने बोला है, कीप योर फेस टू सनशाइन एंड यू कैनॉट सी द शैडो. बेसिकली लाइक पॉजिटिव एटीट्यूड टुवर्ड्स लाइफ डिस्पाइट बीइंग डिसेबल्ड. हेलेन केलर के बारे में आप बहुत सुने होंगे. सो यू शुड हैव ऑलवेज द पॉजिटिव एटीट्यूड. ओनली थिंग वर्स देन बीइंग ब्लाइंड इज हैविंग साइट बट नो विजन. सो हेलेन केलर ने बोला है. एक कोट है ना, पूरा जीवन भर वो लोग उभर जितना भी चीज़ वो लोग झेल के आए हैं उसके हिसाब से कोट दिए गए हैं. कोट का पीछे बहुत मीनिंग है, तो आप उसका गहराई समझना चाहिए. ओनली थिंग वर्स देन बीइंग ब्लाइंड इज हैविंग साइट बट नो विजन. तो आपको अगर विजन नहीं है, अगर आपको आँख है, तो उससे ज़्यादा ख़राब चीज़ कुछ भी नहीं है, ऐसे बोला है. हम सब लोगों को आँख है लेकिन हम दूरदृष्टि से नहीं देख पाते हैं. फ्यूचर में क्या कुछ होगा उसे कहते हैं विजन. तो विजन के साथ देखिए दोस्तों, जो कुछ करना है करिए. तो आप कोई बुक भी पढ़ सकते हो. लाइक आप जितना भी पैसा है आपके पास, एटीट्यूड को कभी नहीं बदलेगा. पैसा अगर ज़्यादा है तो बैड एटीट्यूड आएगा, वो और कुछ आपको ख़राब इंसान बना ही देगा. तो ये चीज़ ना बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ बन जाता है. तो एम्पैथी इज सीइंग with eyes of the another, listening with ear of the another and feeling with the heart of the another. Basically कहने का मतलब ये है, you put yourself in the sum of the person shoes. यानी उनके जगह रहकर आप उनके जैसे सोचना है. This is about empathy. Compassion is to look beyond your own pain to see the pain of others. उससे एम्पैथी से ज़्यादा कंपैशन है. कंपैशन यानी आप उनको फील करते हो और एक कदम आगे रखकर उनको मदद भी करते हो, वही है कंपैशन. काइंडनेस एंड कंपैशन दे कैन हील दोज वुंड्स विच मेडिसिन कांट. व्हाट अबाउट एंगर? गुस्से के बारे में, व्हाट एवर इज बिगन इन एंगर इट विल एंड इन शेम. सो कभी गुस्सा नहीं होने चाहिए. एनीवन कैन बिकम एंग्री, दैट इज़ वेरी ईजी. बट टू बी एंग्री विद द राइट पर्सन टू द राइट डिग्री टू द राइट टाइम फॉर राइट पर्पस इन द राइट वे, दैट इज़ नॉट ईजी. दैट इज़ टोल्ड बाय अरिस्टोटल. बस गुस्से होना कुछ भी कोई भी कर सकता है, लेकिन सही जगह सही टाइम ऐसे होना बहुत मुश्किल है. तो वही अच्छा एंगर हो सकता है. आई काउंट हिम ब्रेवर हु ओवरकम्स हिज डिज़ायर्स देन हिम हु कॉन्कर्स हिज एनिमीज, फॉर द हार्डेस्ट विक्टरी इज ओवर सेल्फ. मैं basically it was given by Aristotle, very beautiful quote you can use in anger. like जिनको ब्रेवनेस ज़्यादा है वो उनको डिज़ायर से आगे बढ़कर उसको कॉन्कर करता है, तो वो बहुत बुद्धिशाली इंसान है. राइट. वो अपने आप के ऊपर जय करेगा. राइट. ग्रैटिट्यूड, गिव ए मैन एवरीथिंग ही वांट्स एट दैट मोमेंट. एवरीथिंग विल नॉट बी एवरीथिंग. राइट. इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस के बारे में, right? Emotional intelligence allow us to respond instead of react. Anyone can become angry. This is also like we discussed about Aristotle. Even ये भी use कर सकते हैं. Whatever began in anger ends in shame. Emotionally intelligent leaders, they know when to displace emotions, when to delay emotions. Emotional intelligence, they account for 80% of the career success. Daniel Goleman and Aristotle जो बोला है, I count him braver who overcomes his desires than him who conquers his enemies. बेसिकली हार्डेस्ट विक्ट्री जो है अपने आप के ऊपर जीतना है. रूल यूर फीलिंग्स लेस्ट योर फीलिंग्स विल रूल यू. लाइक आपको फीलिंग्स को रूल करना, वो फीलिंग्स ही आपको खुद ही रूल करेगा. there is one beautiful called blue dolphin rule. This will control your negative thoughts on. Like psychology में एक white bear problem है. This is also known as like ironic theory. This says about attempt to suppress certain thoughts. This can actually increase their frequency. अगर आपके दिमाग में कुछ थॉट आ रहा है, कुछ सपना आ रहा है या कुछ लाइक सोचने का आ रहा है, तो गंदा चीज़ आ रहा है, तो वो अगर जितना भी रिड्यूस करना चाहते हो वो उभर के बाहर आएगा. तो दिस आइडिया वाज डेवलप्ड बाय हार्वर्ड साइकोलॉजिस्ट डेनियल वेगनर ड्यूरिंग 1980s एंड this quote was given by Russian writer Friedner Devotsky from like almost century ago. 1980s में दिया था. Like आपको ये करना है, like try to pose yourself in this task, not to think of polar bear, and you will see the cursed thing will come to mind every minute. तो अगर आपको उसको नहीं सोचना है, पोलर बियर कुछ नहीं सोचना है, तो कुछ कर्सिड चीज़ आएगा, राइट. ब्लू डॉल्फिन रूल को अगर आप यूज़ करोगे तो आपको ना पॉजिटिव चीज़ आएगा. लाइक बेसिकली आपको आपका थॉट प्रोसेस को रिप्लेस करना है. लाइक इट्स लाइक आपका फोकस को बदलना है, राइट. आपके दिमाग में कुछ वाइट बियर जैसे कुछ थॉट आएगा तो उसको बदलना है. आपको नर्वस नहीं होना है. आपको बोलना है कि मैं एक्साइट हुआ हूँ, लाइक ये अच्छा है, बहुत अच्छा बनेगा. तो यही है ब्लू डॉल्फिन रूल. और इसके बारे में कुछ और ज़्यादा भी सोच सकते हो. ईद शेरिन के बारे में आप सुने ही होंगे. तो वो बहुत अच्छा सिंगर है. सो ही हैजंट हैड स्मार्टफोन इन 7 years. हिज रीजन इज लाइक ब्रिलियंट. दिस शोज लाइक इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस. खिलौनों से प्लेइंग विथ डॉल्स, दिस कैन ऑल्सो हेल्प डेवलप चिल्ड्रंस इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस. देयर वाज ऑल्सो स्टडी. इफ यू सी इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस, इट इज़ अ मल्टी डायमेंशनल सोशल स्किल, राइट. If you see, there are 2 components of emotional intelligence: interpersonal, intrapersonal. अगर intrapersonal में जाए, self awareness, self regulation, motivation. Interpersonal, social skills, motivating others. इससे जाएगा. emotional intelligence से अगर मार्केट में होगा, it will witness growth acceleration. like cognitive ने टैलेंट्स पार्ट पे बोला गया, क्वालिटी वर्क रहेगा, सर्विसेज अच्छा रहेगा, एफिशिएंसी बढ़ेगा, गुड कस्टमर रिलेशंस बढ़ेगा, कौन आपके बजट पे फिक्स होगा, ये सब बहुत चीज़ किया गया. इवन घना आल्सो एक कंट्री है, उन्होंने पहली बार फर्स्ट इंटरनेशनल इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस कॉन्फ्रेंस ने आयोजित किया गया कॉर्पोरेट प्रोफेशनल के साथ. इवन इंडिविजुअल फैमिलीज आल्सो पार्टिसिपेटेड. सो इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में बहुत सारी चीज़ डिस्कस की गई. इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस, इसको we will call again like as emotional quotient. इसके बारे में बहुत चीज़ डिस्कस की गई है. तो दोस्तों, टुडे दिस मच ओनली, एंड रेस्ट ऑफ द ethics related examples we will discuss tomorrow. And we discussed 3 articles today basically. First article was about Nagapattinam harbor, second article about the lessons we need to learn, third article about new initiative from ethics, quote and examples. So thank you very much for discussion.